My name is Anastasia Kinski. I grew up in West London. I went to Oxford University to study Arabic and Islamic studies. I left university thinking that I wanted to be in film production, realised that the likelihood of getting a steady job was going to be quite a narrow possibility, and so searched for a more stable 9-to-5 office job.
I wanted to wind back a little bit to the Islamic studies. How did you arrive at that?
A number of reasons. It was at a time when the Arab Spring had started and it was very clear that it wasn't just a spring anymore. The Western media had many opinions, and actually lots of people that I spoke to had very strong opinions about the Middle East, and it seemed to me that they didn't really know much about it. And I decided that I wanted to find out for myself and have my own arsenal of arguments against their Islamophobia or, their preconceptions. And I think part of me thought I could go off and be a journalist.
Is that kind of why you decided to pursue the film avenue after school?
Yeah, I'm very interested in representation of different people, different cultures, and the different perceptions around that. Ultimately, I found myself here working for a magazine.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about Condé Nast Britain?
Condé Nast was part of what created glossy magazines, and through that creates luxury, and it creates that sort of value that's only for the elite, that's very glamorous. And that happens whether it's part of Vogue or it's part of Tatler or Vanity Fair. Condé Nast Britain is in such an interesting time at the moment because obviously it was an industry based on print.
Yeah.
And that's something that is changing. There's definitely this feeling amongst the publishers, also amongst the advertisers, as in the brands, that actually it's very difficult to create luxury online. You have a Chanel advert in a print edition of Vogue, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of photography, and it's almost as important as the editorial. So it's not just an advert, it's something that, girls at boarding school take out of the magazine and put up on their wall just as much as they would the features shoot. And it's something that you can't get from digital because digital is very temporary. So at the moment, so much is going into developing the online platforms, online videos, sort of immersive campaigns. And that's really exciting because that's really cool to be part of.
What was it like coming out of school and trying to find your footing in the professional field?
I kind of wish I had that one dream that was the only thing I wanted to do, because I find that the going after something much easier than deciding what I actually want.
That's so true. I think just even the prospect of settling on one thing, it gives you anxiety because it kind of closes all the rest of the doors.
I get that about going out for dinner, so why wouldn't I have it about my entire life? And also I just don't believe that we're going to have that same pattern of this is my job. I think we'll end up doing lots of different things.
With that uncertainty and also, the rise in housing prices, how can we try and own a home? Is that gone now?
But that's really interesting. Is it gone now? Because it obviously wasn't always the case that property is the thing that you strive for and that everyone can strive for, that working class, middle class, we can all get there. And maybe the idea is that we've gone through that chapter in the economy, because at the moment, the only people who can afford houses have parents who had a deposit that they could put down for them. And that leads to more problems, because then it doesn't matter if they have jobs that don't have the top salaries. And that means that things like the arts, things like publishing, where money actually is very tight, just get full of one type of person, and they're only private schooled and they're only middle class. They're in this country, they're often white, and you don't get any diversity at all.
What are some of the ways that our generation is taking budgeting into our own hands?
Well, technology, basically.
Yes.
Apps and technology. There's the Monzo card, which is just this bright orange card that like stands out on your wallet so that everyone knows that you're a millennial and cool. It tracks what you have been spending. It tells me on my phone, oh, you've spent this much on sandwiches this week, which is really mean. And you can also set your budget on it. It's a new form of banking, so it's not its own account. You take money from your current account and you put it on your Monzo card and you say, okay, here's my budget for the week. You can move it over so easily from the app, no trouble. It's a really cool app, and there are other banks like this that are really focusing on the idea of being able to budget.
Do you think that schools should be responsible to teach kids about finance?
There's an awful lot of time spent on learning for learning's sake. Now, that's really, really good because you're teaching your brain how to adapt and how to function, how to soak up knowledge. But why not do that with really practical skills like financial management? Why do I know how a volcano works and not how a pension works? From the wider sort of social responsibility, when I leave school at the age of 18, I'm also being given the right to vote. I'm also being given that responsibility to change this country in the way that we want to see it. I can't actually do that without understanding what I'm voting for. And I just think if there were a little bit more of a conversation, of a debate, or even just information given about the economy, about what happens on Wall Street, about what the crash was in 2008, we would be better equipped to demand a better, a more responsible economic system.
In terms of guidance from school, does it differ between genders? Does gender make a difference?
Boys are more likely to be encouraged to pursue their own enterprises and their own business ideas. Girls are encouraged to pursue professions. I get the impression from a lot of my friends that there are boys who should have been pursuing very creative, low-income jobs, but instead of doing that, they thought, oh my God, I'm going to be the primary income to my family. I've got to get on with it and become a lawyer, because if I want to have kids at 30, I need to provide for them. A lot of my guy friends have that real pressure of sort of, well, I've got to do this because, you know, we all sort of accept that the gender pay gap is such that they are likely to be the primary income in their family, even if they do marry a career woman. We have like a strange psyche when it comes to the way that we perceive a man with money and a woman with money and what men do with money. Where men invest in a suit, whereas women splurge on a handbag. Huh?
Yes.
They both do exactly the same thing. They have the same function of sort of making you feel like you're a pulled together person, but a man invests in it, whereas a woman splurges on it. I think it just comes from a history of men being people who have the access to money. Now, obviously, we live in a very different world, but we're still learning. And we're still learning the power of language because it shapes our ideas and it shapes the gender gap when it comes to our finances.
What's next for you now?
Well, I've got a good job that is interesting, that is in an industry that is changing a lot at the moment, but it also gives me headspace to pursue other passions if I want to, because it's a 9-to-5 job and I can pretty much leave everything I need to do at the office. Now, that in itself is such a privilege. I know so many people who have to have 3 jobs just to be able to keep, you know, the rent up in London. So that in itself, I count myself really, really lucky to be able to do. But within that, I can follow things. I can continue following film dreams if I want to in my spare time. But what's really exciting about it is that I have no idea where it's going. I've just decided to completely embrace that. I'm just like, it's not going to be planned. It's not going to be the same as mum and dad's. It's not going to be whatever you thought it was going to be at school. You're going to do something completely different and just see where that takes you.